Gentlemen, I may not have a brain. I'm gonna tell you right now, Madoka Magica units are missing something. I have never been more just about a crossover in my entire life. Because the first part, the units were okay. Madoka herself seemed pretty strong. You could definitely tell the weaknesses, like she needed art gauge and stuff to really kind of make her good. And Homura just seemed okay at best to me, and it just made me feel like someone else could probably do her job a bit better, or we already have someone that kind of does something just as well. So I was really hoping part 2 would bring in some heavy hitters, something that was like, damn, this character is really good, but not really. I mean, let's just talk about the units entirely, and then you'll see the glaring weaknesses and issues, and it's like, why doesn't some of these characters have other things? So the first one is Tomoe. Tomoe has art gauge in the kit for human allies on the skill. She also is able to buff up her damage and break power every time you use her art up to a maximum of 500%, which is kind of crazy. Of course, it's going to take you 10 arts to get to that, but if you're able to get to it, I mean, that's a lot of break. We got a true art that's able to double its multiplier, but only if your HP is 100%. That is really strict. Like being at 90 or 80% gives you a bit of wiggle room, but this being 100, very, very tough. The super art reduces break res by 20. Additionally, increase on damage against enemies under 50% HP by 300% and damage against broken enemies by 200% for the duration of the super art. We have the abilities here. We got art gauge. We got defense ignore. We also have when a barrier is on yourself, you get 40% more attack. And she has the break power ratio passive, which is really good. And we also have her true weapon. Her true weapon is okay just because it has a little bit of break power in it and the skill CT and equip CT, since the skill is going to be able to give her a shield, and that's going to help her stay at that 100% HP. Point is, this unit is kind of just like, what are we doing? I mean, I like the stacking on the art, but the fact the art takes 10 uses to get maxed out is a little bit of a letdown. Even if someone's like, oh, well, you know, she has a fast animation, which I don't know if she does or not. Even with that being said, bro, you're still asking for 1,000 arts. No matter what you do, that is an incredible amount of art gauge that you need. The true art, I feel like, is overall just kind of a little useless, because it's like, oh, we doubled the damage multiplier when you're at 100% HP, so you have a 200k true art. But your super art is where your damage is, so why would you ever use the true art apart from just getting light res down on the enemy? The true art is asking you to use it whenever an enemy is broken, because you get the 200% damage, and then once they get under 50% HP, you get even more damage on top of that. So it's very strange to me as to why the true art has the damage multiplier on it. I think that if we doubled the break value on it, this would make it a bit more enticing to use, because in most cases, from how it looks, since the difference is very small here, apart from just using the super art to get the break res down, you are going to be using the true art in most cases if you have a break res debuff on the enemy, since this has 5k break and the super art only has 1,000 more. Sure, it's 1,000 more, that's great, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference if you're just spamming your true art or spamming your super art. And only 20% on a unit like this is so strange. Thankfully, she's on light, can use Saitama, and he has 30% break res down. Even with that being said, still, I don't see how this character fits in on mono light, considering we also have Sanctus Platina, and if you need a breaker, that is all you need. Because sure, Platina is for speed running and all that type of stuff, but really, in all honesty, she's just overall a really solid breaker that pretty much is doing the same exact thing that we're seeing here. Of course, her break ceiling isn't as high as someone like Tomoe is, but I mean, considering you need 1,000 art gauge to even get to that point, and she doesn't give herself any other kind of arts apart from just the 20 on the skill and the passive art gauge she has with the defense ignore and all that, I just, you know, I'm not really fucking with it. Because if we think about mono light, you're gonna be having Saitama, you're gonna be having Kenshin, you have her. Well, now you gotta throw on Firin to help with the art gauge, and that's another thing too. It's like, if you throw her on, Tomoe has a lot of competition on light, because you have to compete with like Sanctus Platina if you need a breaker, you have to compete with Young Emperor and all that other stuff. There's a lot going on mono light now that for a character like this to fit in, I don't think she's doing enough. Surprisingly, you would think 500% damage and break would be enough, but I think she's just missing a little bit. The next character is Sayaka. I've been seeing a lot of hype about Sayaka, saying that she is an incredible taunt tank and all this other stuff, because that's what she is. If you look at her kit here, you can see a lot of good taunt tank stuff. And overall, we have a lot of things here that are like, oh, absolutely, this is what a taunt tank wants. She gets a lot of bonuses when near death, like more arc gauge, more DR, more attack and damage. By the way, she buffs up allies' attack and physical damage up to 300% based on how low her HP is, which is fantastic. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You may be asking yourself, how does she lower her HP if the boss isn't going to do it though? And that's a great question, because she can't. There is nothing in her kit that allows her to lower her own HP like Giga Chad Gamagori. Even if you look at her passives and everything, nothing. There's not a single thing. I will say I really do like the crit res passive here though. I think that's really nice. We'll just run like Grief or Despair on her. She has a 5-star physical slot. Well, that's the thing. You can't do that because she needs her true weapon. Her true weapon gives her flinch res and it buffs up her own stats by 20%. This is incredibly valuable. Like, you need this type of stuff on her. So the only other option you have is using someone else that has Redacne's 5-star support to throw that onto Sayaka, so Sayaka can be near death as soon as the fight starts, or take Sayaka all the way up to LB7 to get the 4-star physical slot to run B3 Claw. There's no other way to enable the near death state unless you are fighting a boss that is able to go through shields and you're always going to be lowering your HP. For example, like Mars X in the mines right now, it's something that he does. He instantly like lowers everybody's HP. If you're not fighting a boss like that, Sayaka's not gonna be able to give you that crazy amount of damage that you want, plus all of her DR. Her DR only comes online when she's near death. She has a built-in Truth of Eternity, which is great, and considering that you can put multiple Truth of Eternities on her, you're gonna want all that, but you need it to be near death. And I hate that they didn't give her a way to activate near death for herself. Like, even if she just had like on her art, where it was like, oh, consume 30% of your HP every time you use your art. Because her art is very strong with the defense and equip CT speed. With her art alone, defense equipped CTs have a 60% speed buff. So good. But why didn't we just have like consume own HP by 20% or something tacked onto that just to make it a little bit better, to help her be more consistent at getting to near death? I don't want this to sound like you're never going to be able to get her near death. That's not the case here, because you're absolutely going to be able to do that. It's just the way how you have to play this character is very strange. You're gonna want to get hit, but then you need to be careful, because if you get hit too much, your team will die. And considering the fact too that this is a water human, why would you ever use Sayaka over Tomoe? The only thing that this girl has over Tomoe, in my opinion, is that massive attack and physical damage buff on the super art. I understand that they are probably trying to go more of like, oh, you don't need the crossover characters, since that's one of the biggest complaints right now on the global side. So maybe that's why they're trying to like hold back on some of these releases and not make them completely utterly busted. But with a character like this, I feel like we're just missing some tools for her to even be usable or just somewhat good compared to what we already have in the game. And next we have Kyoko. Now Kyoko is an attacker, and if you look at her kit, you're like, oh, she's got some pretty good stuff here, some pretty unique things. She has art gauge, and she gives more arts to fire and water allies. You got stuff like being able to inflict paralysis, which is pretty unique, on a true art, considering she's a fire character too. We have a super art that's able to give you more attack and damage based on how high your own HP is, up to a max of 300%. And you see all that and you're like, holy, that means she has the ratio passive, right? She has all this damage in her kit, all this attack buffing. Where's the ratio passive? And ladies and gentlemen, she doesn't have it. The abilities state that she has life steal, which is great. She wants to have as much HP as possible, so I'm perfectly fine with the life steal. It's great. She has tactics built into this unique passive as well, because she gives everybody 50 arts. She has hellfire resistance, because why the fuck not? And she has burn res. But gentlemen, let me just say, where is the ratio passive? How do we get a character that has 300% attack and we don't see a ratio passive on them? Granted, some of you may say, well, OP, she has 300% damage buff on top of it, so why would she need the ratio passive, right? Even a 1% attack ratio passive would have been perfectly fine on this character, and she would have been good. And you can't argue it would break the fucking game, because this guy exists. So we have this guy running around Why couldn't we have this unit running around with at least a 1% ratio passive? Granted, by the time this video comes out, they may already showed off like some of the buffs and stuff. They usually like to tweak these characters a bit before they, completely release. But if they don't tweak this unit at all, I'm gonna be like, it's just that she's missing some stuff. Like her toolkit isn't as good as it could be. Personally, I think the way to make this character just very good is give her a ratio passive. Give her a ratio passive and her damage is going to be very strong. People are going to love it. She's going to be one of the fan favorite characters here. And I guarantee you that you are going to make people want to summon for this character a whole lot more. But overall, part 2 is kind of just to me. Here's the thing. Here's the craziest thing. It's but every character from it is just all right. It's the most alright crossover I've ever seen. I wouldn't necessarily say anybody from here is necessarily a must summon apart from Madoka herself. That's the only one, and then even then it's like, well, you gotta have like arch generals and stuff on the team. It's not a character that can just hard carry your account as a new player. But part 2 specifically, I mean, the best one is Sayaka. But even then, I would argue that you don't need Sayaka or anybody from this crossover. No one's bringing anything necessarily new to the table or power creeping any of the units we currently have. So yeah, overall, I think it's kind of just a very solid 7 out of 10 crossover. No one's completely broken. No one's like a must summon. Summon for who you want, which I kind of like that, but also I just wish the units had a bit more. I just wish that some characters just had like one more thing. And that's literally all that I'm asking for with a lot of these units, is that they had one change. Each of these characters got one buff or change to their kits. I think they'd be perfectly fine. And it'd be like, okay, sure, they're not going to be like the most broken characters in the game. They're usable. They're very good. They're well put together. But unfortunately, I don't know if GS is going to do that by the time this comes out. Either way, though, you guys let me know down below how you feel about the part 2 of this. Are you liking it? Do you not? Do you think it's whatever? Let me know all that type of stuff down below in the comment section. Also, if you enjoyed this video, have you check out this video popping on your screen right now. It's talking about how you can make the most of this end of the year update in Grand Summoners Global. If you're curious about that, click on it and I'll meet you over there. Oh, and one more thing before you leave, don't forget to drink water.